Imagine standing before a scene steeped in solemnity, a moment of immense grief captured in a dim room. The painting, The Lamentation of Christ by Andrea Mantegna, reveals the heartbreaking stillness after the crucifixion. Picture a stone slab bathed in cold, muted light. The body of Christ rests upon it, his lifeless form the center of the painting. His skin is pale, drawn tight over the ribs, and shadowed as if the warmth of life has slipped away. Christ lies flat, his head slightly tilted, crowned with thorns that have dug into his brow, leaving faint rivulets of blood that have long since dried. His face is peaceful, though marred by the agony he had endured. His mouth is slightly open, as if the last breath still lingers in the air. His closed eyes suggest a deep, eternal slumber, one from which he will awaken but not yet. His body is arranged in a foreshortened perspective that creates an unusual view. His feet, pierced with nails, are closest to the viewer, exaggerated in size and grotesquely real, with wounds visible in their brutal detail. The feet seem heavy, leaden, pulling the viewer into the gravity of the scene. His legs rise toward the torso, where his arms, limp and languid, fall by his sides. One hand, with fingers relaxed and open, still shows the puncture wound from the crucifixion nail. His chest, firm yet hollowed by the weight of death, bears a subtle sense of surrender, the body resigned to the inevitable. At Christ's side, two mourners weep. One of them, the Virgin Mary, his mother, is a figure of profound sorrow. She hunches forward, grief collapsing her form into itself. Her expression, wrinkled with age and suffering, is veiled in anguish. Her eyes, swollen and red from crying, remain transfixed on her son, disbelief and devastation etched deeply into her features. Her mouth trembles, open as if she is murmuring a final prayer or word of comfort, though it's drowned by sorrow. Every inch of her being radiates the desperate ache of a mother who has lost her child. Beside her, another figure, likely John the Evangelist or Mary Magdalene, kneels, his face buried in his hands. His body is tense, as though caught between restraint and collapse, his shoulders trembling with the weight of unbearable grief. He dares not look upon the body, for to do so would make the tragedy too real, too consuming. The colors in the painting are subdued, almost as if the world has drained of vibrancy in mourning. Soft hues of brown and gray dominate, echoing the stone and lifeless flesh. The only remnants of red come from the faint traces of blood on Christ's hands, feet, and side, fading like the remnants of suffering. The air feels heavy, thick with loss, almost choking in its silence. The space around the body feels vast and empty, a void filled only with the presence of death. The distant background, vague and indistinct, suggests an unfathomable eternity beyond this moment of mourning. Time itself seems to hang suspended, each second stretched into eternity. The emotions emanating from the scene are overwhelming. You can feel the weight of grief like a physical force pressing down on you. The profound sadness is not just for the death of a man but for the loss of hope, the sorrow of an ending that feels irreversible. Yet, beneath it all, there's a whisper of something more, a distant, almost imperceptible promise of resurrection. But in this moment, all that exists is sorrow, loss, and the fragile, tender love that endures even in the face of death. The painting invites you to linger in this moment of mourning, to share in the heartache and the humanity of those left behind, yet also to contemplate the fragility of life and the profound impact of sacrifice.